what he brings. Anybody that can put up 29 points, 7 rebounds, 7 assists, and not make the All-NBA team, that's like a sin to even think about not putting a guy like that on the All-NBA team. Stephen A., does KD have a point about Harden?
No, he does not. Where are you going to put him? When you consider the year that the Golden State Warriors have had, when you consider LeBron, when you consider the greatness of Kevin Durant along with Russell Westbrook, and the down year that the Houston Rockets had, and the reason that James Harden was in the news, what do you expect? Let me be very, very clear about James Harden. James Harden is an absolute stud. He is a superstar offensive player. Defensively, sometimes he shows up, sometimes he doesn't. His greatest year as a defender was fresh off of playing with Coach K. In the, I think it was the pre-Olympics or whatever it was a couple of years back. And then he came on the basketball court and he showed more of a concerted effort on the defensive side of the ball. James Harden can do whatever's required. He's that elite of a talent. The problem is he doesn't always want to do it on the defensive end of the floor. Now, in his defense, that may have to do with the offensive responsibilities that he may have, carrying the load for the Houston Rockets. And because of that, sometimes you conserve your energy because everybody's not going to be Jordan or Kobe or LeBron where they never let up on the defensive end of the floor. But nevertheless, that's been the case with James Harden. So Kevin Durant is not wrong for coming to the defense of his former teammate who never should have left OKC. The Thunder should have come up with the extra $4 or $5 million to keep him on board, no doubt. They probably would have won a championship in OKC before Kevin Durant decided to leave had James Harden never left. But nevertheless, he did leave. And Kevin Durant's not wrong for highlighting his greatness because James Harden is great. But he is a bit disingenuous in ignoring why people are somewhat critical of James Harden. Another thing to bring in the point, it is widely believed that James Harden is the reason that Kevin McHale was fired after 11 games into the season. He had a meeting with management, and the next thing you know, Kevin McHale is gone. Now, that may not be fair to James Harden because clearly he's categorically denied such a thing. But nevertheless, there are people who have been saying that about him in NBA circles.
And how'd that work out without McHale?
And how did that work out? Not very, very well, even though I do believe Bickerstaff did a damn good job considering the turmoil that surrounded the team. You've got a guy like Dwight Howard who's now in Orlando. Some people feel he's fell off and he's got a lot to prove. But Dwight Howard would make the case that, damn, I can't dribble the ball and pass it to myself. People should be setting things up for me and giving me the ball. And sometimes James Harden would look off. We could also look at James Harden and as electric and elite and sensational as he is as a basketball player. There's usually a lot of dribbling that takes place before he takes a shot. Well, how does that work when you got 4 teammates around you who aren't necessarily seeing the basketball that much? So again, Kevin Durant is not wrong when he talks about the greatness of James Harden, but considering the year that he had and what was the storylines that surrounded him and some of the cynicism that comes attached to him, you're not telling the whole story when you tell why he wasn't picked first team, because clearly people are saying it ain't all about the numbers. Sometimes numbers do lie just a touch.
Kevin Durant is wrong when he calls James Harden a great player. Now, I want to be very clear about this. Yep, I want to be very clear about this.
I'm sorry.
He's not a great player.
You're saying James Harden's not a great player?
He's a very good player. He's not a great one.
Go ahead.
Now, and by the way, Carmelo Anthony, same thing right now.
Well, right now, yeah.
Yep.
Well, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll get back to that James Harden thing.
I'll get to the difference between good and great in a second. But
yes.
This is what, first of all, the league is changing under these players' feet. So some of the stuff they could do really well, for example, in the previous era, score in isolation, is much less valued now. And fans are getting more sophisticated. If you don't play defense, they recognize, see that other guy, maybe you're a little better in terms of, not even offensively, in terms of scoring the ball, but he actually plays defense. Here's the thing about Harden, and I want to make it very clear. There's a difference between a good player, a very good player, who really doesn't have the potential to be great. We've seen enough. We know it's not in there anywhere. And a guy like Harden. When I watch Harden play, I go, the question I always ask myself if you're supposedly elite in the NBA is, can you be the best player on a championship team? The answer for Harden is yes, it's possible. It's in there somewhere because we've seen him play defense at times. We see what he can do when he's playing the right way. He's capable of it. It's in there, but it hasn't come out of him yet. He was very bad in the finals when he was on OKC. Fine, he was coming off the bench. He and Westbrook and Durant somehow were a little inefficient, the three of them together. They were kind of less than the sum of their parts. The whole was less than the sum of its parts. I get all that. But if you really watch Harden throughout most of his career, does he rack up a lot of assists? Yeah. When do those assists come? Dribble, dribble, dribble. He's very good at getting to the line, but if he can't get his own shot...
Nobody's better at getting to the line.
He's amazing. And that's a high percentage thing to do, and so is shooting threes the way he does. But if he can't do that, he waits till the shot clock's almost up. Then he passes the ball to someone. They're like, we've been standing around getting cold. Now I don't really have an open look. And like, he gets his assists that way at times. I don't see him get the hockey assist too often, even though he's capable of doing it. What Durant is reacting to with Harden is what players frequently react to with guys like Harden and guys like Carmelo. A player knows better than anyone how hard it is to do what Harden does so well at the highest level. They know how much work goes into it. And the fact that Harden can do so many things so well, his peers recognize that's so hard to do. He's great. But it's not just that you have the tools, it's how you apply them. And James Harden has all the tools, does not apply them in a way where you can say that guy is a great NBA player.
Couple of things. Number one, he's a career 85% shooter from the free throw line. He shot 86% from the free throw line the last 3 years, so we know that.
High percentage player.
Secondly, Kevin Durant wasn't just reacting to what you just articulated. Primarily, he was reacting to the cynicism aimed in the direction of a friend of his and a former teammate, because that's what Kevin Durant tends to do these days. Thirdly, and more importantly, when you talk about what James Harden doesn't do on occasion, that's the difference between you and I in terms of our definition of greatness. My definition of greatness is a couple of things. There are times when James Harden didn't show up in big moments. Like, he was mad at me for years or whatever. I mean, we say hi and bye, but I mean, because he has damn right, and they better get over it, because I'm gonna keep telling the truth. The fact of the matter is that in that finals against Miami, there was an APB out on him. We couldn't find him. There were times when he was wide open at the free throw line, wide open at foul line extended, etc., elbow, and literally would not take shots, which is something we're not accustomed to seeing James Harden do. His talent is unquestionable, but he didn't show up in big moments. Last year, he didn't show up in big moments at the time. In the playoffs a couple of years back, even when they came back from that deficit against the Clippers and went on that like 49-9 run in that Game 6, James Harden was on the bench. They were doing that without him on the floor.
He's a one-way player, which you brought up. He's a one-way player.
But here's the thing. This is why I say you still can't deny his greatness. Despite all of those things you mentioned, and they're not wrong, you said the most important thing. What guys work diligently to pray and hope they can acquire, this guy does in his sleep. This guy averaged 29, he averaged 25, he averaged 26 a game, shoots better than 45% from the field, gets to the free throw line at will, got a nasty handle, can play the point, can do so many different things. His greatness that I'm speaking about is what he possesses, his skill set. I'm not always saying results.
His skill set is the toolbox. He's got all the tools.
Well, that means you can be greater.
But how do you apply them? But the ball sticks with him. His teammates don't like it.
And I'm saying to you that there's a difference. Just because you're great doesn't mean someone isn't great to her. But it doesn't take away from the fact that you're great. It's just an elevated level. We got a whole bunch of Hall of Famers. Does everybody deserve to be in the same room as Magic and Michael?
Is James Harden an MVP caliber player for real? Is he an MVP?
I thought he was, not this past season, but the season before.
I disagree. I don't think
the season before I thought.
I think he should be.
The season before I thought
he can be, but I don't think he is right now.
Not right now, based on last season.
Based on last season. You're going very good. Right. You're sticking with great. Different definitions, though. D. Wade spoke with Kerry Champion at SportsCenter Sunday's Conversation. What did we learn about Wade going to Chicago, the newest Bull? We'll react.